3, 2, 1.
Nah, you should do it.
Knock, knock.
No.
Oh. I love it.
All right. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Caleb.
And Casey with the C4 podcast. How you been living, brother?
42.
I knew you were going to do it. And it still catches me off guard.
All right. So, give me a fact about yourself that most people wouldn't know.
I have been playing and DMing D&D for about 6 years.
Nerd.
Not a nerd.
Nerd.
It's not a nerdy thing.
D&D is a nerdy thing.
Yeah, you play too, so how about you?
Okay.
Shut up.
You can say that if you are it.
It's the N-word.
All right. So, what's your theory on why D&D is not a nerdy thing?
Teaches a lot of life skills. A lot of life skills, very difficult to get everywhere else. Not difficult, I wouldn't say. It's one aspect of culture that you can get experience in things that you wouldn't normally encounter.
How so?
Well, first off, especially if you're a DM, it's a lot of diplomacy with other people, which is a skill in D&D. Leave it to nerds to make diplomacy a skill. Yeah, you got to learn how to deal with 5 people that have a whole broad range of what they want to accomplish in a session. Make everybody at least semi-happy enough to come back the next week when you hold session again. So you're really you're running into group politics at that point. You're running into teamwork. It also teaches you discipline, weirdly, as a DM. Because you're it. Nobody else really has to come up with a story. They've all got their own little character sheet. You've got about 50 different character sheets and a bunch of contingency strategies for your idiot players because it's like herding black cats at night.
Well, you have any reason to it.
You what?
Okay. But how does it teach you diplomacy if I can just pump my diplomacy stats up?
Well, you can in the game. You definitely can in the game. You can do a lot of things in the game. It'll make your DM very uncomfortable.
Okay.
I'm not RPing your fetish.
I am not.
We're done. DMs are done. You want to do that crap? You go do it on the internet with the other weirdos that like feet and dragons. Not at my table.
Okay. So here is my question about that. How does it teach you diplomacy? And I would advise, before you answer that, to, if you learn anything from the Bible, whether it's fiction or reality, we won't ever debate that.
Yeah.
Ever. It's a sensitive subject for a lot of people.
And you would get crushed.
But it has some decent teachings. Not necessarily in the Bible, but about the Bible. Like, I think one of the best teachings that we learn from the Bible is the best way to communicate with people is in parables.
Yeah. That's fair.
So, if you want to sell me on the fact that you learn diplomacy as a DM, I need a parable. I need an example.
All right. I am not going to name names.
Pete.
Don't tell him. So I've got 2 players at my table. They have 2 very different ideas of how a D&D session should run and what they want to accomplish in it. We're going to call them Zachary and Jackery.
Okay.
And so, Zachary likes Jackery. Jackery does not like Zachary. And neither of them wants to get daiquiris together. They're both of a medium intelligence, I would say, in their own unique ways. And so what happens is Zachary continually derails the campaign on what he wants to do, which pisses Jack off.
All right, so for those who don't know what derailing a campaign means.
Yeah, it means anything your DM says, and then you're like, I'm going to go blow up the tavern.
Okay. When you're playing a campaign, first of all, let's backtrack just a little bit here.
Describe what it is.
D&D is a bunch of grown acidos playing pretend at the table. That's what it is. It's like when you see the nerds playing Skyrim and stuff, imagine that, but instead of using a computer and a mouse or a PlayStation thing, we use our imagination.
Pretending to play Skyrim with a bunch of other people.
Yes. So just like in most games, there is a storyline that's created. This is what he's talking when he says the DM, the dungeon master, the guy that's in charge of the players. Because if I sit around with 4 guys and pretend fight, if there's nobody there to mediate, it'll just be a
And Den.
it will just be a bunch of guys on the table and arguing about who's bigger. So there's somebody at the table who's basically a mediator that's also in charge of bringing forth monsters for you to battle and stuff and all kinds of nerdy shenanigans. So he has an idea when he starts. This is what I kind of have laid out for them to do. So when we talk about a player derailing the campaign, it means the DM, the dungeon master, has laid out kind of this little campaign scenario that he's trying to usher the players through. The players ultimately have the decision on how they go through that. But sometimes you get one player where everybody's like, this looks cool. We want to go in this cave and defeat this big dragon. And then you have one player that's like, well, there's a tavern up ahead, and I know how to use explosives, and I'd rather just kind of go blow stuff up than actually participate in a group activity.
Yeah.
So when he talks about derailing the campaign and Zachary and Jackery, Jackery would like to continue along the story quest the game has provided, and Zachary would like to go to a harem.
Yeah. And so the big problem as a DM is you're trying to bind together a group of individuals that all have this individual play style. And nobody that plays D&D is really, I won't say nobody, but most people don't get into D&D because they're good with other people. Let's be very honest about that. It is mostly nerds. And so you're trying to bind all these people with very few social skills together in a cohesive unit to get through this campaign. Or I like to run sandbox style where you don't know you're on the railroad, but you're on the railroad. And so I couldn't get these 2 guys to unite at all. I couldn't get them to get along. And so I had like three options, 3 different strategies I ran through campaigns. My first strategy was to individually single them out and let them have their own moments of glory. So I'd take like 5 minutes a night for each of them and make them feel special. They had the crowning moment, whatever. They get to slay the dragon. They get to do something that only their character can do. It really puts them in the spotlight. They both feel good. They never have to interact. My second option is to make them begrudgingly interact, which is a strategy a lot of DMs use, because like, you're at my table, you can play by my rules, you have to get along. I'm God, rule 0, whatever. And rule 0 just means it's not in the rules, but I'm the DM and I say it is, and it's my house and it's my game. So it's my way or the highway that Gretchen didn't fix. And the third one is to get them to cohesively bond in a positive manner that leaves them with the feeling that they underestimated the other person, that they leave with a higher concept of who the other person is. That's a very poor wording. I don't really know.
No, that's decent.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah, and so like with Zachary and Jackery, what I did was we're on this alien planet. It really doesn't matter why. And so I went with the first strategy to give someone a few moments of brilliance. This happened to be Zachary in this case. So he got like possessed or something. He got possessed by something. So he goes on crazy murder rampage, and the only person that can solve that murder rampage is Jackery. And some stuff happened, but it was mainly because I'd already given in the past weeks the other players at the table their shining moments in the past couple weeks. So they were fairly sated for the month. And so I was able to role play this out with kind of just these 2 people in the spotlight and everybody else in the fringes, because I'd been building up to this. And what happened was they had to have a cohesive effort in order to save both their characters, which if you're a DM, you know how attached players are to their characters. And so in order to save their characters, they had to work together and figure this problem out that I created arbitrarily, because everything in D&D is arbitrary. And it forced them to work together, and it really solved a bunch of issues at the table with them agreeing on something like that.
And
I couldn't have done this without deep diving into who they were as a person and what their play styles were.
okay. So my question is, how does D&D do that in a way that you guys just hanging out around a fire couldn't?
It does and it doesn't. You know, you're not wrong. Like hanging around a fire.
I have an answer to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I asked that with specific intentions here. Okay. People play D&D for a lot of different reasons. There are people out there that play because they can't get laid and they want to pretend to get laid. That's when Casey's talking about the dragon fantasies.
Leave your
like
fetish at home.
Yep. People like to kind of enact that out in a way that they're like, haha, it's funny, but I'm really kind of doing this. So they say face to the table.
It's like sending a girl a picture of your junk accidentally. It was an accident, unless you like it.
Was it big?
What'd you think?
So
That's exactly what it is.
So there is that aspect. We're gonna push those people off to the side because that's a whole separate conundrum that I don't think we need to deal with right now. People play D&D for a variety of reasons. For some people, one of my favorite things about D&D, and it's the reason I was very resistant to D&D for a long time. Cause I've seen a lot of people that play D&D, and I've heard people playing D&D, and even watched a couple of D&D podcasts. It's rather nerdy and a little over the top for me. I had a hard time for a long time understanding, like, if Skyrim exists, why do people play D&D? I had a really hard time with that. The thing that I like about D&D is player group number 2, and this is where a lot of the people that you hear about playing D&D, that you're like, that guy plays D&D, is because it's kind of like an improv night. You, in fact, I kind of like the one-offs like that, and my buddy Larry introduced me to D&D. Larry is a part-time, when he wants to be, stand-up comedian. Who's rather funny. He's kind of good at it, and if he ever sank enough time into it, he could probably do it professionally. But as of right now, he goes to open mic nights and some stand-up stuff, and has a couple funny bits, but I'm working on it, Larry. But it's kind of a fun improv night, so when you watch things like whose line is it anyway, that's kind of how some people treat D&D. Is I kind of get into character and play this guy, and it's an improv night, and I think that's fun. The other way that people mainly play D&D, I would say that's one. It's actually kind of probably a minority, but when you hear about guys like Vin Diesel playing D&D, that's why. It's because it's his acting practice, his improv night.
Well, and most of his characters have come directly from his D&D.
Oh yeah, no. Riddick and Witch Hunter, and that have come from D&D. Those are exact replicas of his D&D character. But you have a second category of people that I shouldn't categorize it like this, but I'm going to say that their life sucks in their own opinion. They don't really like a lot of things that they get to do on a daily basis, and they would rather be a wizard. Which, who wouldn't rather cast a fireball?
Yeah.
To be fair. So
I cast Tannerite.
What people like to do is they like to play out who they feel like they are, who they feel like they should be at the table. So I'm going to make this character who's kind of my ideal version of myself, or a version of myself that I kind of toy with internally that I wish I could be like. You know, the little, and this is why you get into the derailing people, is because they kind of want to be a minion for a couple of hours and ruin other people's day.
Munchkin.
Yeah,
the term is Munchkin.
Sure. Munchkin is a better term for that. But they would like to be that person without having to be that person. Let you kind of experiment, try on different hats, and see what you like. So when you have two characters of people interacting, what it is this is an amalgamation of myself that I would either like to be, or I'm playing around with, or I have some ideals that I would like to test out in a scenario that I'm not actually held accountable for.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
And I get to test that out with other people doing the same thing. So when you make two physical people interact in that way, this is my ideal self or a version of myself that I'm kind of experimenting with, interacting with a version of yourself that you're kind of experimenting with. When you make those people interact on a meaningful level in game, it actually lets you know intrinsically some things about that person as a whole. So you can understand them better as a person by playing D&D with them. Because whatever they're pretending, there's some part of them that believes that.
Well, and it's also kind of role playing out what you could be without having the discipline to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. It lets you experiment with who you are as a person, because one of the problems is I can't have an opinion for a day.
Not with that attitude.
It's not allowed.
Huh?
If okay, we're gonna touch on a touchy subject right now for half a second. If I decided I don't know if and then we're gonna go as far out there as we can.
Yeah.
I might be on the Michigan protester side. I might not be. But if I want to see if I am, I can't do that. I can't go on social media right now and post to Facebook like, hey, maybe the protesters have some valid points, because I will get lit on fire and I will be held to that for my entire life. 20 years from now, I will still be the guy that was a Nazi with the protesters. I can't even experiment with that ideal in my head. I can't hash that out. I can't play devil's advocate and have that argument with somebody, because I'm held accountable for that. I'm held accountable for my opinions that I post online or elsewhere. And I think
I'm not sure I'd use accountable.
I think you're held accountable for that. I think you're held accountable for that opinion, not for your actions, for that opinion for the rest of your life. We hold people.
I wouldn't even say held accountable. I'd say held in contempt.
Yeah, you're held in contempt of it. It's part of the accountability, but maybe you're right. Maybe accountable is not the right word.
Yeah, because I feel like accountable is like you have to make it right.
Yeah, that's kind of how I mean it. Is you have to make up for that for the rest of your life in that circle of people who know that about you.
That's fair. That's fair.
Because if I ever want to have an opinion on something else ever again, I'm just the guy that supported the protesters because I experimented with it for a day. I thought, maybe there's some validity to it, let me look into it. Just by looking into that, I've ostracized myself from an entire community of people. It's one of the reasons our political stage looks like it does.
Bones in the coffee.
But at a D&D table, I can experiment with different philosophies in life without having to be accountable for that.
That's fair.
I don't have to actually have these moral alignments. I can experiment with a bunch of them at a D&D table. See how they interact with other people. See how other people take them. Because even though we're kind of playing pretend and you're supposed to be pretending to be your character, there's a part of you in there. There's players have a hard time separating themselves from their characters a lot of times. So you actually kind of get to see how people react to your opinions and stuff. Like, I'll give you a parable. In my first ever D&D campaign, which was rather late in my life because I was pretty opposed to the whole nerdiness of it. We had a campaign module, let's say, a day that we played where the theme of that day was Gnome Lives Matter. And we had different characters on different sides of that argument. That there may have been a related political thing going on at that point in time that was very close to Gnome Lives Matter.
I'm just saying Gnome Lives Matter, but so do Blue Dragon Lives.
See, that's the thought experiment.
Yeah.
Is can you toe that line of the fence? And you can't. We kind of got to hash that out, and people got to take sides that they don't take in real life, and have that thought. It's kind of like forensics for adults.
Yeah.
Where if you go to a forensics or a debate team or whatever, like I don't know what it's called these days, but forensics is what it used to be called. But if you go to a forensics debate, you're assigned a side of a case, so you get to kind of put on somebody else's glasses and see the world.
Yeah.
And I'm not free to do that in real life. I'm not free to have that discussion with people.
Yeah.
I am around certain people.
Yeah. behind closed doors.
Mhm.
I could be a closed door conservative.
Exactly. But can you imagine if you look down your Facebook list? I have people on both sides. If I
make a Facebook post that says, I don't really think billionaires are that evil. Do you know the flame war that will start?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing is it doesn't matter what opinion I have. I have people on my social media accounts, on all of them, on both sides of that aisle, and I will have people on one side trying to destroy me, and people on the other side that think that I'm liberal Jesus and they need to rush to my defense. Like, it doesn't matter what opinion you have. You can't experiment with that. That's all I'm saying. There's a very long way to get around with D&D. Lets you experiment. It lets you have different opinions without having different opinions.
Yeah. And a decent DM will set that up for the players.
Yep.
Not saying I'm a decent DM.
I give a nice turd cutter.
Yeah. Thanks.
I say it's decent.
Yeah.
But so what else does D&D teach?
Strategy. Picking your moment. A lot of, because not a lot of people play chess anymore. You can find people, but and it teaches you, like Call of Duty and stuff like that, teaches you instant strategy, like instant tactical advantage. Whereas a lot of D&D is more like a war game, like a classical chess or Risk, or whatever that Swedish game is. Where everything's pawns. Yeah.
Oh
Yep.
no, that's not that one. But
Yeah.
Keep going.
But yeah, and it teaches you you have this set of skills, and you kind of are blind to what the enemy has, so it's like 4D chess, if you will. Because most DMs do not run just the regular stat block for monsters, because players will metagame, which means they'll take outside knowledge and give it to their characters. So as a good DM, you just like, the stat block's a lie. And you have to make decisions in the blind based upon what little information you have and you hope to right. And you have to do that as well while keeping in mind that there's 4 other people at the table that are going to make their own unique decisions. And most battles are a judge of whether or not you work well as an individual or as a party. So the strongest character is a party. And so you're learning to think tactically in a shortened time, but not Call of Duty short, where your screen turns red and you're like, oh, I'm being fired upon, I have to find cover.
Okay.
Not the greatest ranter.
No, you're good.
You're in front of the camera.
I got a tangle. No, I would say that the number one thing that good D&D teaches is difference.
Yeah.
The good D&D teaches. If you have somebody running a session as a player, you get to experiment. Because again, that's all the way that I see it. All D&D is a human experiment.
Yeah.
You get to almost lab what it looks like. Although there's definitely some lab bias.
There is, yeah.
But either way, I think on this particular issue, you get to experiment to see what it's like when you work cohesively with others and when you don't.
Yeah.
You get to feel the effects of both with somebody who's running a game that will allow you to have some natural consequences to your actions.
Yeah. Yeah. Karma's only a bitch if you are.
I do like that. That's my number one thing that I like about. Besides, I really like the improv part. I like the role playing, the hopping in, and turning it into one big fucking comedy sketch.
Yeah.
I do like that aspect, but I also know that when I do that, it's certain places that other people aren't in it for that, so it's kind of selfish of me to do that.
Oh yeah, I found that out a couple times.
And my least favorite part of D&D is actually the fighting.
Your combat sucks.
I agree. But a lot of people like combat. They like getting in and fighting things. And it's in most games, combat is my favorite part of the game.
Mm-hmm.
D&D is the one exception.
Yeah.
I hate the combat in D&D. Not that I hate the combat system, not that I think it's inaccurate, not that I think it should change or anything. It's just a lot.
Yeah, it takes forever too.
Mm-hmm.
People don't know their character sheets, and people don't know the rules. So you have to
If I want to play combat, that's what Skyrim's for me.
Yeah.
It's, not that I've actually never played Skyrim. However, really, never touched it.
It's a good life
It's
decision.
nerdy.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. That's not the drawback for me.
It's just a lot.
Yeah. I just I got over RPGs a long time ago. For me, I haven't played an RPG in years.
That's fair.
It's
Final Fantasy's a lot.
it is. Although 7 looks dope.
Yeah, but you're sinking like 200 hours into something that's not with other people.
Yep. I had my own thought on games a long time ago. I'll probably come back to this at some point
Yeah.
in our careers.
Yep.
But
I'm better at talking on camera.
yeah. No, I would say that it teaches you different things as players and as a DM. But one of the things that it teaches you, if you're playing it correctly, is personal responsibility and group responsibility.
Yeah.
And there's a distinguishment between those two.
Yeah.
And I do think that it teaches you that for some of your actions, there are consequences for just you,
Mm-hmm.
and there are also consequences for the entire group.
Yeah.
Because of your actions. And you kind of get to learn how to differentiate between those. I think it's another.
Mm-hmm.
I think the best way to look at D&D is it's a good way for adults to grow up.
You're not wrong. You are not wrong. Yeah, no, it is. I think the reason for its popularity has been the recent extended adolescence.
Yeah.
Not that it's adolescent to play D&D, but it is a way to experiment with, are you mature or not?
It's a way to test the waters of adulting without actually having to
Yeah.
adult.
Yeah. Yeah. And good DMs don't track coin weight. Those fuckers. No?
Is there anything else you have to say about D&D? Anything else that it teaches you that?
I don't think so. I think it's pretty much strategy and then, strategy, ethics, and functioning within a group of non-like-minded individuals.
So, if I wanted to play D&D, how would you recommend I go about it?
Well, if you want a baptism by fire, I would go to your local comic shop. They've always got boards with people looking for players, and just pick one, and you'll have an experience.
So what you're saying is I have to walk into a comic shop.
No, not really anymore. I don't know. I actually wouldn't know how to go about it. Because I already know so many people in the community that I can just kind of jump in games. And, I know enough people that are also DMs that I just be like, hey, can I come run an NPC for a night? Because I'm kind of fiending to play pretend with some adults. But yeah, I would say local comic book shop. There's a lot of boards online for it, too.
It sounds a lot like the BDSM community.
It does. It is. It's underground. It's secret. There's a website. You need a password and invite. Just call Terry Crews. He'll hook you up.
For either.
I don't judge a man.
I like beers.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm sure once I flesh out the thought a little bit more, it's not a same day event. I'll have a few more opinions about D&D, but yeah, no, I don't think there's anything wrong with playing D&D. I do think there's something wrong with letting that be your only experience with dealing with a group. Like that's a good place to start. It's not a good place to end.
Fair enough.
So, yeah. I think that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
It's a wrap. And not like Eminem. Alright. It's very awkward. Stumbling.
Doesn't matter.